Do you want to be ahead of the game for the latest in arts, music, cuisine, and entertainment across the Middle East's most dynamic capital cities? Al Monitor is proud to launch our City Pulse newsletters, focused exclusively on local news, starting in Riyadh, Dubai, Istanbul, and Doha. Each week, our on-the-ground writers in these cities cover the latest cultural happenings and trends, so you have everything you need to know for the best local experiences. To subscribe for free, go to almonitor.com, that's al-monitor.com, and sign up on our newsletter page.
Welcome back to the Al Monitor Brief. I'm Adam Lucente. Clashes erupted in southern Syria's Suwayda on Friday, despite a ceasefire on Wednesday and following a day of relative calm. The violence is challenging Syria's transitional government as it faces yet another occurrence of conflict along religious and ethnic lines in the charged post-Civil War climate. Arab states, Turkey, the US, and Israel are all keeping a close eye on the situation. Late Friday evening local time, the Syrian presidency vowed to send troops back into the area in response to the fighting. In this episode, I will take you through the latest in southern Syria and how the situation began, highlighting Al Monitor's recent reporting on the topic. Hope you enjoy. First, let's go over how all this started. The fighting began last Sunday in Suwayda, located about 60 miles south of Damascus, between Bedouin clans and Druze. Tensions between the two rose following a Druze man being robbed at a Bedouin checkpoint days earlier. Several days of fighting have left hundreds dead, including civilians, according to rights groups and war monitors. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights has alleged that government and Bedouin forces have executed civilians and Druze fighters, as well as burned houses and businesses. Government forces deployed to the area in response to the fighting, and a ceasefire was announced on Tuesday. That quickly broke down, and another ceasefire was announced on Wednesday, after which the government said the Syrian Arab army began withdrawing. There was relative calm on Thursday, but on Friday, fighting resumed. The local news outlet Suwayda 24 reported clashes in various parts of the Suwayda countryside, adding that some fighters from outside the eponymous province had entered the area. The Syrian Observatory said that the Syrian Arab army and Bedouin fighters shelled and fired missiles at Druze fighters in Suwayda city, and that local forces besieged Bedouin neighborhoods in Suwayda, among other incidents. A Suwayda resident who spoke to Al Monitor said that basic services in the area have been interrupted for days amid the fighting. Late Friday evening local time, the office of Syrian President Ahmed Sharaa pledged to send forces back into the area to resolve the conflict. The fighting has reignited concerns of widespread sectarian conflict in post-war Syria. Bedouins are Sunni Muslims, while Druze practice a religion that is an offshoot of Shia Islam. The Druze are one of several religious minorities in Syria, along with Christians, Alawites, Ismailis, and others. And the Druze number around 700,000 in the country, mostly living in the south. This is not the first time Syria has been plagued with such violence since the civil war ended. In March, government-affiliated groups carried out massacres against Alawites in areas along Syria's coast, following an ambush on government fighters by militias supportive of former President Bashar al-Assad. Druze and Sunni fighters clashed in the Damascus suburb of Jaramana in late April. To refresh your memory, Assad was overthrown in a December rebel offensive led by Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, a jihadist group that has its origins in Jabhat al-Nusra, al-Qaeda's former affiliate in Syria. Sharaa, HDS's wartime leader, became president in January, but had previously served as de facto leader ever since Assad fled. Sharaa has sought to moderate his image since taking power, and is pledged to protect minorities and hold perpetrators of crimes accountable, including in regards to the Suwayda violence. He has also vowed to unify all armed groups in the country into a new national army. Some members of the Druze community backed Assad during the war, partly out of a fear of Nusra, the Islamic State, and other opponents of his regime. But protests in Suwayda against Assad and the dismal economic situation in the country began in 2020. The fact that some of the worst violence in Syria is occurring in the south is not especially surprising, as it is a complex region and the Druze themselves are divided politically. Suwayda is a particularly challenging area in these regards, as many armed groups operate outside of the state control. On Thursday, Al Monitor news reporter Rosaline Carroll and I wrote an overview of the main Druze religious leaders and armed groups in the area. The Men of Dignity, or Rijal al-Karama, gained prominence in 2018 when they fought against the Islamic State. They criticized the Assad government, but never formally aligned themselves with the Islamist-dominated rebels during the civil war. Another group is the Sheikh al-Karama forces, which split from the Men of Dignity, and has been generally supportive of the new government, as well as opposed to Israel's intervention in the area. The Al-Jabal Brigade fought against Assad and his allies, like Lebanon's Hezbollah, as well as drug dealers during the war. They and the Men of Dignity expressed their desire to join a new national army following Assad's fall. The Syrian Druze have three main religious leaders. Sheikh Hikmat al-Hijri has been vocally critical of the new government, accusing them of seeking to, quote, exterminate the Druze, and calling for international protection of the area. Sheikh Hamoud al-Hanawi and Sheikh Yusuf Jarboua have sought to work with the new government to restore calm. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more after this short break.
Today's transformation of the Middle East is at the center of global geopolitics. Whether you're an analyst, diplomat, executive, or academic, you need the best reporting and analysis to understand what's really happening on the ground and what it means for the world. Al-Monitor is the award-winning independent leader in Middle East news. From Riyadh to Beirut, Abu Dhabi to Doha, and Baghdad to Tehran, our team of over 100 expert journalists report daily on the top stories driving the regional trends. Download our mobile app and subscribe to Al-Monitor to follow what leaders and decision-makers are reading every day. Go to almonitor.com, that's AL-MONITOR.com, and use promo code POD25, POD25, for a discount.
Okay, we're back. To conclude, international responses to the Suwayda situation have been mixed. Israel is perhaps the most involved regional actor in southern Syria. Israel began its military intervention there in December following Assad's fall, but has carried out numerous strikes in recent days, including against the Syrian Defense Ministry headquarters, specifically in response to attacks on the Druze. There are also more than 100,000 Druze in Israel. Druze men serve in the Israeli army alongside their Jewish compatriots, and many in the community have been vocal in calling on Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to intervene on the Syrian Druze's behalf. Israeli Druze religious leader Sheikh Muwafiq Tarif has been calling for direct military action in southern Syria. Israeli Druze protested over the situation this week, and some even crossed the border into Syria themselves. However, on Friday, an Israeli official told reporters that it would allow Syrian government forces 48 hours to enter Suwayda in response to the new clashes, a contrast to Netanyahu's past demand of no new government forces south of Damascus. Al-Monitor's Israel Pulse columnist Ben Caspit wrote on Friday that Netanyahu is torn between Israeli Druze, who want him to act, and the administration of U.S. President Donald Trump, which is pressuring him to avoid escalating the situation. For its part, the Trump administration has expressed concern over the situation, but has previously sought to engage with Syria's new government, particularly via Syria envoy Tom Barrack. The fall of Assad, who is backed by Iran and Russia, has presented opportunities for the U.S. and the West to gain a foothold in strategic Syria. Al-Monitor's Elizabeth Hagedorn wrote on Thursday that the violence in Suwayda is testing the Trump administration's policy and complicating the U.S. hopes that Syria and Israel will normalize ties. Other regional states have sent a clear message that they are standing by Sharaa. Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman expressed, quote, confidence in Sharaa on a Thursday call. Sharaa also spoke to Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan on Thursday. Turkey, Gulf states, Jordan, Lebanon, Iraq, and Egypt put out a joint statement on Thursday expressing support for Syria's security and territorial integrity. Thanks for listening to the Al-Monitor Brief. Be sure to follow Al-Monitor for more on the stories impacting the Middle East. Until next time, I'm Adam Lucente.